Alternative view on Alzheimer's disease. Vita migliore. The problem. There may be a more hopeful way to view dementia and Alzheimer's disease. A different perspective comes from the study of near-death experiences, NDEs, and in a way, neurological losses are in that same realm. Both physical science and spiritual belief systems state that energy is never lost. So, what happens to the energy of a personality when brain cells begin to lose their function? The great tragedy of suffering by the families of Alzheimer victims comes mainly from the conviction that such energy is lost forever. A growing body of knowledge from spiritual sources, and from NDE research, however, suggests that such energy, the personality complex, is simply transitioned to a different realm. If a grieving caregiver could find evidence for the survival of the soul, this would provide some of the much-needed relief to replace the angst of this terrible disease. The research. In groundbreaking research by Michael Newton, Ph.D., he suggests that when a person dies, the soul enters a gateway area to begin orientation back into the spirit realms. It's a big leap, but the cosmology behind this theory is that souls are eternal and a life on the material earth plane is just a temporary learning experience. As believers often say, I'm a spiritual being having a material experience.
Regardless of the specific energy treatment received by the soul at the gateway to the spirit world, most all returning souls will continue on to some sort of healing station before rejoining their soul groups. All but the most advanced souls crossing back into the spirit world are met by benevolent spirits who make contact with their positive energy and escort needy souls to quiet recovery areas.
Destiny of Souls, Chapter 4, Recovery Areas for the Less Damaged Soul, by Michael Newman, Ph.D., page 90. One of the most common settings of these gateway, or recovery, areas is a beautiful garden, as confirmed by NDE reports. In this instance, the soul is greeted by a spirit guide and again ushered onto their soul group companions. The guide in many cases is Jesus.
I went through a tunnel and arrived in a garden. I walked with a very beautiful man who gave me counsel. I looked at him in his essence and did not understand how such a beautiful, good, and intelligent person could be interested in me. He spoke to me, but I do not remember what he said. Perhaps his words are engraved in my soul. The curious thing is that he didn't make me feel guilty. I had attempted suicide and he spoke to me as if I had made an unimportant mistake and he counseled me to do better. As I spoke to him, we walked along and soon he told me go and join with a group of people. Even though I didn't want to leave him, I obeyed.
Gloria G. NDE, Near-Death Experience Research Foundation. The above quotation underscores another theme often found in the NDE, that what we consider sins on the earth plane are ignored or forgiven in the spiritual realms. We are not judged. Rather we judge ourselves, and often much too harshly. Here we see how a troubled soul is unburdened of this self-guilt by the attending spirits.
I underwent what has been called the life review process, for I saw my life from beginning to end all at once. I participated in the real-life dramas of my life, almost like a holographic image of my life going on before me, no sense of past, present or future, just now in the reality of my life. It wasn't as though it started with birth and ran along to my life at the University of Moscow. It all appeared at once. There I was. This was my life. I didn't experience any sense of guilt or remorse for things I'd done. I didn't feel one way or another about my failures, faults or achievements. All I felt was my life for what it is. And I was content with that. I accepted my life for what it is.
Guilt thoughts removed. A big part of the life review is correcting self-recrimination.
Also, I had to see and feel all the hurtful things I had done, even the hurtful things I didn't know I did. I had to feel the person's hurt I caused. But, you know how we are taught that we will stand before God and be judged one day. God was not judging me. I was looking at my actions, with God at my side, loving me while I was judging myself. And believe me, no one can judge me any harsher than I already judge myself. It was like getting caught by my parents when doing something wrong, only worse. During the hurtful review, I was so ashamed and there was no hiding. My immediate thought, and I said it aloud, was, I'm ready, I belong in hell, I don't deserve to go to heaven. But it felt like he took hold of my arm as I was making my way to hell and said, wait a minute young lady, you get back here. You don't understand, and I'm going to explain this to you. He was asking me what different choices could you have made? What are you learning from this? Not yelling at me and saying how could you do that? Or, you are going to hell. This was clearly not the punishing God I had been taught to believe in. The hardest part of this was realizing he had already forgiven me. I was having a very hard time forgiving myself. He showed me how I couldn't let his love in without, first, forgiving myself. Punishing myself didn't make me better in his eyes. Accepting his love was what he wanted from me. Once I was able to accept that God only loved, it was easier for me to openly and honestly look at my life. I wanted to learn as much as I could. I had so many questions. God loves me the way I love my children. Even when they do something wrong, I still love them. I'm not happy with their actions, but that doesn't change my love for them. I hurt for them and I make them take responsibility for their actions. There are no strings attached to God's love.
So, what does all this have to do with Alzheimer's? It seems one of the biggest disconnects upon entering the spirit realm is the inability to comprehend how much God loves us. Too many people judge themselves severely, not appreciating the total forgiveness they receive in the afterlife. In that other realm, our mistakes are seen merely as learning experiences on the road to becoming more like children of God. In the transition zones of the spirit world, all these self-recriminations and the burdens of guilt are removed, restoring the soul to its rightful place. Could it be that the loss of memory is actually a kind thing? Alzheimer's patients are between worlds. Perhaps the erasing of the guilt, the self-judgment is already beginning in these patients, starting to take place even before their transition. Possibly, in the removing of complexes of self-judgment, the recognition of family members becomes obscured as well.
Returning through the large room, I told the people I was going back to the earth, but they seemed to want me to stay with them. I obeyed the call, although it was very much against my desire, as such perfect peace and happiness prevailed there, no suffering and no sorrow. I was so taken up with all I saw and heard that I did hate very much to leave that beautiful place. This has always been a source of comfort to me. I learned by this experience that we should not grieve too much for our departed loved ones, and especially at the time they leave us. I think we should be just as calm and quiet as possible, because, as I was leaving my mortal life, the only regret I had was that the folks were grieving so much for me. But I soon forgot all about this world in my delight with the other.
Conclusion. One theory gleaned from the study of near-death experiences is that the human consciousness of such a person is steeped in material-based beliefs, and in order to transition gracefully into the more liberating and powerful realms of the spirit world, that the ego-centered belief system has to be gradually eclipsed and replaced by the spirit consciousness. This means that the person is actually between worlds, and there really is nothing to worry about. All the loving thoughts and gifts that person generated on earth are preserved and even glorified as he or she transitions to that bright land. As a Facebook guru, Brandon Ragex, put it,
"This is a very interesting theory, and it could shed some light on the emotional side of things this particular topic brings on. We get so lost in the everyday belief that our physical, human mind is the only thing that makes us who we are, yet we forget there are other realms which our soul has the ability to engage."
This discussion, of course, is just one aspect of the problems encountered in resting with Alzheimer's disease, but it just may bring comfort to some of the caregivers.